Hey everybody. You here? I'm gonna have to do it this way because YouTube, they're screwing me up somehow. I don't really know why they've done this. I'll have to figure it out at Church of Spirituality. Just so you know what's happening on this channel. YouTube is not giving me the option to have my iPad going in the right direction. And I've done this before and it drives me crazy. So I might be looking at you kind of funny. Somebody say hello. And then we'll get started. Hi. The background noise is tough. Can you not hear me? All right, we'll get started. The reason I had the white noise machine on was if you were at our meeting we just had, we do a guided meditation. And there's a lot of noise outside on the street, so that's why. And there was a really loud motorcycle, so the white noise machine didn't really help. It was just an experiment. Thank you for being with me. I apologize for the crazy visual angle, but I'm just gonna go with it until I figure out what YouTube has done. Let's go over the readings from Sunday. And the theme, it was the last Sunday in June. The theme has been for June, the divine power of the protective paternal, speaking about the divine masculine, which is gentle and strong. The sermon was great. It was active duty divine. If you were there on Sunday, it was... On Sunday I had outside, a lot of you know this, there's a festival for the patron saint of fishermen. You might see a fishing boat coming in behind me. And it's a big Sicilian festival. And I made one of my readings, I'll read it to you, about St. Peter. And right after I finished my sermon, I heard, it got punctuated by Viva San Pedro, which is what people say during the festival. And there was a Catholic mass going on at the same time. So during that whole service, you can hear the organ and the choir and all the noise, and it was pretty cool. Let us go to the first reading. I want you to know that you can feel free to put any questions in the chat about any of the content here, and I'll do my best to answer them, because this is kind of a discussion. The first reading is from The Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes. Our sermon was entitled Active Duty Divine, so the readings are relevant to that. And this is a spiritual mind treatment, which is a kind of an affirmative prayer. There is one infinite life acting through law with a capital L, that means the universal law. And this law is mental. It starts here. Law is mind in action. We are surrounded by an infinite, subconscious, impersonal, neutral, plastic, creative, ever-present, thinking stuff, from which all things come, which in its original state permeates and penetrates all things. By impressing our thought upon this substance, we can cause it to produce for us that which we think, to the limit of our ability to mentally embody the idea. So what he's saying is, it's only limited by our ability or lack thereof to mentally embody the idea. Impressing our thought upon it is not an external act. For when we impress our thought upon ourselves, we are thinking into it. This is because of the unity of all mind. This is one of the great lessons to learn. We do not know anything outside of ourselves. This is what Jesus meant when he said, "Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." When we know within ourselves, we are knowing at the point of that individualized spirit which we are. When we know within ourselves. Upon the very heart of the infinite, the ever-present substance which is ever responsive to itself. So, as you can tell, this is, Tesla, Nikola Tesla believed this too. They all lived during that time. Ernest Holmes lived at the same time of Einstein, Charles Fillmore, who founded Unity, Mary Baker Eddy, who started Christian Science. I'm not sure if she was around at that time. They were doing lots of experiments and lots of, they were having lots of discussions and written lots of papers. And Ernest Holmes wrote The Science of Mind about the nature of energy and how it all works. So in this reading, what Ernest Holmes is really speaking about, it was the New Thought movement, right? Very good. That's what they called it. I hear it called sometimes New Thought Christianity. Carl Jung, right? And it was like about 100 years ago, right? Mary Baker Eddy was alive till 1910, so she was a little earlier. Thank you. You're very, very knowledgeable. So during that time, they were exploring the nature of our thoughts, of our thinking, and the fact that we are, and if you want to delve into this, there's a lot of discussion going on about this all the time. Greg Braden comes to mind. Greg Braden has a lot to say about this. So we have to consider that universal law means that we are all part of this. Like I've heard Deepak Chopra talk about it like as like an energy soup, right? We're all part of this energy that is universal. And the way that Ernest Holmes describes it here is he even calls it plastic in the sense that what he means by that, I don't even know if they had plastic back then, but what he means by that, he says we're surrounded by an infinite, subconscious, impersonal, neutral, plastic, creative, ever-present thinking stuff from which all things come. You can kind of think about it like if you have a lump of clay, right? It's up to you what happens with that lump of clay. So energy is all around us and our thoughts impress. That's why you mentioned plastic, like a mold. Our thoughts impress on the universal substance that's all around us. And what I know, what I study, what I've experienced and studied, and maybe you have too, is that the feeling, a thought and a feeling are connected, right? So the feeling that goes with the thought is what really makes the strongest impression. So we're working with, this is why I have the Grassroots of Democracy 20 on Tuesdays. guided meditation for a healed America, because what we're doing is we're impressing thought into the substance. When Jesus the Christ said, "It is done unto you as you believe," this is what he was referencing. And Ernest Holmes is kind of really saying that here. Along with "ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." When I was involved in the Religious Science of Nashville Church, I didn't become a licensed practitioner, but many of my friends that I knew did. And one of the things I would hear out of a practitioner's mouth when somebody asked for prayers, a prayer treatment from the practitioner would say, "I will know that for you. I will know the truth for you." And sometimes it's hard when we're really emotionally involved and emotionally attached to what we want the outcome to be. Maybe we have a lot of fear, a lot of doubt around it. It can be easier at times to get somebody else to see the truth for you, to know the truth for you, when we are having a hard time getting there on our own. Otherwise, we can be working on it at the same time. We can be working at our beliefs and creating the mental equivalent. I find myself, maybe you guys find this to be true too, I find myself forgetting to create the mental equivalent in my mind of what it is that I want to see happen. I have to remind myself constantly, Annette, if that's not what you want, why are you thinking about it, right? And that's what Ernest Holmes is speaking to here. So the reason that I felt it was connected to my sermon theme, active duty divine, which just popped into my head like all my sermon titles do. Thank you, Spirit. Very humbled by that. Is that Ernest Holmes speaks about using the substance. We become active. We actively use the substance. Yes, vibrations, Zircon is saying, are effective. Vibrations are what creates, right? So the temptation that so many people have, which is natural and normal, is to think that it can't work that way. And then that affects what you impress onto the universe. It can work that way. It does work that way. We just have to work on, like I mentioned, Ernest Holmes calls it the mental equivalent. So it's thought and feeling is what we're going for. The thought and feeling of the thing being so. And I know that we live in an impatient world. We definitely live in an impatient world. One of our greatest challenges can be being impatient, right? I mean, are you with me? You guys agree with that? And lack of patience, I've learned, maybe you've learned this too, means that we don't have faith. If we're lacking patience, we really need to check our faith. I have a new sign there that says faith involves risk. Right? We have to just kind of take the risk. I'm going to believe it. I'm going to just believe it. I'm going to know it. I'm going to feel it. We've been talking about the risky time we're in the United States right now. Yeah, it's really risky. We need to hold on to our faith and our knowing that all is well and all will be well. Let me remind you all that when Ernest Holmes was alive, when Albert Einstein was alive, when all of these great thinkers were alive, all these great spiritual leaders and teachers were alive, some of them lived through World War I and World War II. Ernest Holmes being one of them. I think Ernest was born in the really early 1900s or maybe the late 1800s. They used these tools, and it's not like the first time I've thought about this. Maybe that they were using these tools and these truths and these awarenesses. Maybe that's how we made it, right? We may never know. But just for the chance that that's how we made it this far, that they were practicing, they were using the universal laws to create the kind of outcomes that they wanted. In the Bible it says where two or more are gathered, I am with them, meaning where two or more are gathered, like minds together, then it's our prayers are more powerful. Let's go to the last reading, and then if anybody has a question, you can ask your question. This meeting is quite short. I just want to go over the readings and kind of build this for people who can. It's remarkable to me. It's remarkable to me that sometimes it seems like people can't sit for a longer period of time than 20 minutes. So I appreciate you being here. The second I don't mean to offend. That's just the society we live in. 10 minutes sitting still is too much. So I took the second reading that really is about faith, or that lack thereof, from the Holy Bible, from Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 to 33. In light of that, we had a festival for St. Peter here over the weekend. And this is one of my favorite stories. Jesus made the disciples get into the boat. He had just been preaching. And go on ahead of him to the other side while he dismissed the crowd. After he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and cried in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." "Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. Then Peter got out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." Peter had it within him. If he had just had enough faith, he already saw that he could walk on the water. He saw Jesus doing it. Something inside him went, I want to do that too. I can do that too. But the second he doubted, he started to sink. So I want to encourage us all to think about the second that we go into doubt. There needs to be, just speaking of America and what we're going through, there needs to be a critical mass of people that will hold the space for what we want to be so. Yeah, I believe that Jesus was a guru. What we believe to be so, what we desire to be so, a happy, peaceful, joyful world. And healing for our country and for the world. What we want to be so, we have to make a mental equivalent in our minds. And that makes an impression on the divine, universal energy that's within us and around us. And enough of us must do that. And I believe enough of us will. Just like I was saying back almost 100 years ago, these great spiritual teachers did. And we've always had great spiritual teachers. We always have. Maybe we came from the cosmos. There's a lot of research and science about that too. If you'd like to ask a question, feel free. If nobody has a question, then we'll just say goodnight for now. And hopefully we're better equipped. Yes. Oh, good. I'm glad that, I'm so grateful that you're here. So if you don't have a question, I'll leave you with this. Many years ago, I saw a little bumper sticker that said this, and I love this so much that I made myself a sign. And it's really important to remember this. And that's kind of in the story in the Gospel of Matthew about Peter, is like, he was taking a risk going out and walking onto the water, but his faith was not quite there. And that's when he started to sink. So let's all check our faith and keep the vibe up. All right. Thank you for coming. I'm going to straighten out this iPad issue eventually, but stay in touch. We'll see you soon. Namaste.